Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here are your supernatural hosts, Patricia Baker and Becky Andreasen. Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Supernatural Girlz. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, Patricia Kirkman. Hi, Patricia.
Hello, sweetheart. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm very well. Thank you for asking. And as we both discussed, it's been kind of a sad day because we lost one of our Supernatural Girlz, co-founder, co-host, Helene Olson, passed away last night from pancreatic cancer. And what a loss this is for all of us.
That's for sure. That is for sure. At least she is no longer in pain, and that's a blessing.
It is a blessing, and I know that she was seemed like a very quick illness. She was diagnosed. People were asking about this, so I'll share this. Helene was diagnosed at the beginning of December, and there really were not any treatments that could help her at that point. So she did try a couple things, but the disease progressed quite rapidly. And what a loss for us, for her family, and her friends, and all of the people from Angel's Lighthouse, all of her clients around the world. Just a very sad thing to lose Helene. And again, everybody who knew Helene knew that her connection with the angelic realm was sterling. I mean, she had a very powerful connection there.
Very definitely. She will be lost on this side, but a blazing star up above.
That is certainly true. I mean, I'll always cherish my memories of Helene, working with her on this show, on Angel's Lighthouse, on the Skull Project. And I was always in awe of her talent, her ability to identify the archangels as they stepped forward. And then she was always doing those free healing circles for people, too, which was so generous of her. And she just offered those freely to anyone who wanted to join them. And they were powerful, just wonderful, sweeping, energetic waves that she would provide for people in their lives. And again, I'm still kind of in shock. It's even though this was expected due to her illness and the severity of it, it's always a shock to me when somebody passes. You know, it's like, what?
When the door actually closes. When the door actually closes, it makes it so difficult because it's such a finalization that we can't reach back in and pull back.
Yeah, it's like I want to reach in and pull around and go, wait a second. Are you sure this is supposed to happen this way? We still would like your company, you know? So it's part of life. I know a lot of what we've discussed privately and on the show about embracing change. But it's such a large change. And again, everybody I've talked to today is feeling that intense loss of Helene. But I know she's out there doing her thing, adjusting to her new life and energy stream on the other side. And I have no doubt, Patricia, that you and me and Becky are all going to hear from Helene, and we'll be sure to pass those messages on to everybody when she is settled in and comes through. And I know everybody's going to want to hear what it's like on the other side. And I know she's anxious.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I know she's going to be very anxious to give us that information because she was so involved in the utmost of all aspects of it.
Yes, she was. I mean, I was actually, someone was helping me with the newsletter today and kind of left out one of the pictures, but I did post it on Facebook with Helene's hands turning blue. That occurred several times in the skull experiment with Becky and I, and Helene's hands would just suddenly turn blue. Becky's hands turned blue. But I posted a picture on Facebook so people could see it because it got left out of the newsletter. And it's an incredible picture. It was some of the work that she was involved with over the last year until she became ill. And it, again, was exciting stuff. But now we're all hoping that she'll join our spirit team on the other side, and that we'll be able to talk to her yet again. So, anyways, it's just, again, our condolences to the family. This is a major loss for them. Her 2 boys, young boys, and then she has an older son, Nelson, also, and his wife, her husband, Arthur, and all of her friends in the Salem area. So, again, our hearts go out to the family, and we thank you, everybody who has called or emailed or tweeted and expressed all of your love for Helene and her family, and also for us. But she introduced me to radio. I mean, my God, I wouldn't be on the air with you right now, Patricia, if it wasn't for Helene. I owe her that. So, again, a wonderful light. Yes, that's right. Yes. So we both owe her a lot for being able to speak to our audience. And so you were saying that this is a time of transition, that the numbers are speaking to that right now.
Right. It's been a 9, which has been about endings and letting go of what no longer works for us. Tomorrow we'll be opening the doors for new beginnings and fresh starts. And it's part of the transitional parts that we go through. She will have so much, I don't know why I'm getting this, but she'll have so much more power to give us, coming back to us in time. It'll be surprising to see. She may be gone, but she is not finished. Let's put it that way. She's got things to do with the rest of us.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. So the relationship continues even though she's dropped the physical form.
That's true.
Yeah. And she did this right in the doorway, is what you're saying. It's right in that 9 doorway.
Exactly. And 9 is for humanity at large, and that's what she always worked at and worked towards and making it better. That's
right, wanting everybody to have a better life. So, oh my goodness. So what does this mean? We're in a 25 today. We'll be in a 26 tomorrow. What does this mean for everybody?
Well, 25 is actually still a 7, even though it's a universal 9-day. But the 7 has to do with the spiritual side. It's our guides. It's giving us knowledge. It's opening doors for us. It deals with the larger picture of things. And 7 brings out our spirituality in a way that we never think about. And the 7 itself makes us stop and think, believe, have faith, and look at what's taking place. So, yes, there's a sadness because we've lost Helene, but there's also that extra knowledge of knowing that she will now be in a position to enhance the rest of us for what she's coming back with.
That's so fascinating. Now I can't wait for the next couple of months to see what in the world is going to happen.
Oh,
wow.
Do you think she's going to let this show go on without her? I don't think so.
Well, I'm glad she's going to continue to be a part of it. So that's great news. So maybe we'll even hear her voice. I know we've heard voices before on the air.
That's for sure.
And we've certainly taken some wild pictures during our American Skull session. So I'm hoping, we're all hoping that we'll be able to see Helene again, even while we're still in this lifetime, even though she's passed. Oh, my. Well, this is exciting news, Patricia. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to our future endeavors with Helene.
That is terrific. That's terrific. Well, tonight we have one of my favorite guests, and it's going to be your favorite guest soon, Orion Foxwood. He is amazing. He's a conjurer in the American Southern folk tradition, a traditional witch, and a fairy seer. He's the founder of Foxwood Temple of the Old Religion in Maryland and the co-founder of Conjure Crossroads and the annual Folk Magic Festival held in New Orleans and ConjureCon. He was born and raised in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia and is the author of several books, including The Tree of Enchantment, The Candle in the Crossroads, and this new book, which was fabulous, The Flame in the Cauldron. You know what? Orion is not just great at everything he does as a witch and in terms of witchery. He's also a great writer. I love this book. I couldn't put it down. Wasn't this great?
Oh, it was. You're right. You can't put it down. You get started, and you keep thinking, well, what? I'll give it another minute, and then you keep going. And the next thing you know, you've read the book.
Yes.
It was excellent.
Yes. It is excellent, and it's powerful. I mean, this is not light reading. It's powerful reading. If you really want to know the truth about witchcraft and witchery and old witchcraft, this is the book for you, The Flame in the Cauldron. So we're just so honored to have Orion back with us tonight. So let me see. We have a new board, a new radio board, and it's been driving me nuts. But I think I've got him on the air right now. So, Orion, welcome to the show.
Hey there. It's wonderful to be back on here. And it was actually deeply moving to hear you talk about the passing of this wonderful, wonderful woman.
Aww.
And I have lots of things to say along the way, if I may, about spirituality and mysticism and magic and its relationship to the death transition.
Oh, that's wonderful.
May I?
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead, please. Do share with us.
Yeah, I was listening, and first of all, it's just always so beautiful to hear people talk about a life well lived and a life well invested, where their brushstroke on the canvas of life embodied, that part of life, is just going to be deeply missed. So I was just honored to listen. Well, recently I was talking to someone about death, and she was saying, spirituality and the study of the occult and magic and all these things are to prepare us for death. So I stopped and I thought about it, and actually I had to disagree with her. It's actually to help us expand our concept of what it means to be alive.
Ah, okay.
Like, for instance, your dear friend, she hasn't passed. She hasn't died. The part of her that was familiar to everybody, her embodied state and what she looked like, it's transitioned. And so we grieve the loss of that which is familiar about her as she expands, like a beautiful fan that's opened up. Now she, in fact, has opened up and she has spread. And it's in many ways easier to find her now. So I really feel that all of this spiritual work and this work with understanding the spirit world is not to sort of befriend death. It's to understand that there's three ranges of life: embodied, disembodied, and never embodied. And it's all life.
Yeah, there's no coincidence that you're on the show tonight, Orion. That is for sure. And, it's, again, as Patricia and I heard us discussing, it's a difficult thing to accept sometimes. You turn around and you expect to be able to pick up the phone and talk to your friend like you normally would, as we would talk with Helene. But that isn't possible by traditional telephone methods anymore. But I love hearing what you said, that now she's expanded and we just need to recognize her in her new form. Is that what you're saying?
I am, and that we really must, I think it was Wayne Dyer, who's one of my favorite authors. I love Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer said, we must endeavor to die while we're alive. So that when we die or transition the focus of our awareness out of form, the disembodied world is not a strange and alien place for us. Like, the best thing we can do right now is to build a relationship with the invisible in our lives, with the intimate side of nature. See, when we're looking at the forms, that's not the intimate side any more than when we look at a person, we can't say they are the person. The personhood there is exactly how they appear. Because we know we can't, as they say, read the book by its cover.
Right, exactly.
Very
so
true.
The appearance is just the appearance. So building that intimate relationship is key for so many things. And that's a lot of what you talk about also in The Flame in the Cauldron, your new book, which we loved. It's fabulous. And we highly recommend this. Everybody should
Very much so.
This. Oh, it's an amazing piece of work that you've done. And we also like the fact that our friend Raven Grimassi wrote your foreword. He's been on the also a couple times, and he's right here in Springfield, Massachusetts, so right around the corner. Another great person. But
great man.
Oh yeah, and his wife as well, just lovely. So there's a quote that you had in here that was just, I gotta find it. I just have to find it. It says, "We must restore the sacred power of creation to this wounded earth." So it's not just being able to do magic for our own benefit, but you talk about this, you mentioned this quote, which is wonderful. It's also for the earth's sake.
Well, I don't know if you remember in the book where I found that quote, just to show you how magic can be and wisdom can be in the strangest places.
Yes, go ahead.
It was from True Blood.
Yeah,
for heaven's sake.
That's right.
It was from the popular series on vampires and all that, and it was when the witch was on there, and the witch, Antonia was her name, and she was looking around, and there's all these vampires sort of running the show, and of course vampires doing what vampires do, they're eating people, it's just their thing. And she said, "What is this? You are defending this very thing that devours life." She says, "We witches must save this, restore the sacred power of life to this wounded earth." I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very profound, and I love the way you've actually woven a lot of quotes in to this that, again, make everything work. But again, tell us a little bit, for some of the people who haven't heard you on our show before, tell us a little more about you, your background, because I know you have a childhood filled with stories also about your abilities and how you tuned into all this and found out what path to take. I mean, you have a very rich early life that's filled with magic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I was born in the Shenandoah Valley, and actually in Winchester, Virginia, in terms of the hospital. The culture that I grew up in was a mixture of Southern and Appalachian, with the Appalachian culture pouring down the west tip of the valley through the Massanutten chain of mountains. And so what you had then is this very Celtic-influenced, sort of nature-based, tribal-based, family-based, old world way of looking at life that was passed down from the elders, as we call them, the hill folk. And then in the valley, that met with slave culture, because, of course, Virginia was, sadly, the center of the slave trade. But that also meant there were African traditions. And my mom she was born, I always say, my folks were po. They weren't poor because they couldn't afford the other OR.
I remember hearing that before from you.
And she, the midwife, because they couldn't afford to go to hospitals and that sort of thing, the midwife for her birth was a freed slave. Now, I always love telling people about that, because people think about the Civil War, and it seems in our minds like it was so long ago. Oh no, my mom was born in 1934, and this woman was well up in her age, or as we'd say, long in the tooth. I think she was at least in her 60s, 70s then. And so we have that culture that sort of poured in. And then our family was known for the veil, which is the second sight. Mm-hmm. Mama had it, my sister had it, and I was born with it. And so that's a little bit there. So that's where really conjure, Southern root work, Southern folk magic came in. And really, I should say, too, that defined my relationship with the spirit world because of having the veil, there was no way out of it. I was going to have the ability to see the subtle side, or what I call the intimate side of life. I was going to see the spirits. I was going to experience the other world. And luckily, and I have to just give praise to my mom. I love my mom so much. She's long passed. Nice. And she gave me the permission to keep that door open, even before my veil had awakened.
Mm-hmm.
When I would see spirits, she didn't say, "Oh, son, that's all makeup. That's all made up." She'd say, "Oh, that's wonderful."
Oh, how wonderful that
she'd
do that.
Say, "That's wonderful." And sometimes she'd even say, "Well, here's what you have to do. Next time you're here, you have to take some honey and pour it into the stream for the water women," if that's what I saw, and I did. So all of that really defined my love of the unseen company, my love of the spirit world, and my experience of them as, and the different kinds, as being not only intimately tied to our life, but I think intimately tied to our well-being. There's a more recent quote that I use a lot, and I'll say, intimacy is in the invisible. And it really is. Intimacy, we can't really put a name on it and say, oh, at that moment, I got to know that person. I got to know them totally. But instead, it's like this invisible thing arrives when we make room for it, the invisible person. And that inspires love, and that inspires authentic sharing and connection. Well, the other world and working with the other world is in many ways all about opening yourself up to the intimate side of nature. And thank God, my mom, I love you, Mom, Betty Jean Shipman, she consistently gave me the permission to not turn my eyes away from the intimate side, but to turn my eyes deeper into it. And that really affected all of my other studies that would, happen later, like my studies in traditional witchcraft.
God, what a gift. I mean, you not only had the benefit of your mother's second sight and her encouragement of you, but you also, this feels like such a long, long genetic history of this. You really were a part of the old ways.
Oh, yeah. Now, they didn't use the W word, they didn't use that because it, by then it long had the propaganda tied to it that, it's a bad thing. And, but they did everything but it, but use the word. I can't really thank my folks enough for that help, But also growing up as a little boy with the second sight was not easy either.
Yeah, what kind of challenges did you face?
Well, things like, knowing, my grandfather was going to die before he did, and seeing it before it even arrived in this world. Or, we would be out at, grocery shopping or something like that, and I could see the spirits of death behind people already transitioning them. Because when we die, we don't just, our biological functions don't just stop. That's the thing people have to understand. There are beings that live in the strata of life that we think of as the death transition. And that's where they live. They work with that process as sure as a microbe works with the decomposition process in life.
So what did you see? Can you give us more information about what do you see and what did you see when somebody does begin their transition? What do these entities look like?
Absolutely.
How do they appear to you?
There are these beings, and you hear about them in fairy traditions, specifically in Scottish and Irish fairy tradition, which is a core component of old witchery from northern and western Europe. You can't talk about it without talking about the fairy tradition, too. And so there's these beings that are known as the washer women, or the washers at the ford. And the washerwomen would often be seen by the seers and those, with second sight, either as a person's dying, or they might be seen at the ford, which is like a little bridge, that they would be carrying the body over on its way to being buried, and they would see these women, often 3 of them, beautiful fairy women, washing either the blood stain, like soldier outfits, if it was that uniforms, the blood-stained clothes, or the skin of the person who was dying or who had died. And what they were doing is they were actually washing the soul loose from the skin. I've seen them many times. They're radiant, they're beautiful, they're pure compassion. I've seen them many, many times. I got to, I saw these as a child. You can imagine that's a little challenging for a little boy if he doesn't have a paradigm to process it,
Definitely.
Yeah.
What did it appear like when you're looking at that? Is there a description for what you would see?
Oh, what they would, like if you were to say how they appear?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're often seen. And in fact, when I've talked about the washers, and they're sometimes also called the mothers, or the matrone, or in Welsh tradition, they're called I bendit mamau, which means the mother's blessings. And they're, in tradition, described as 3 beautiful women, otherworldly women, often garbed in white, with long flowing hair. Often the hair becomes the very environment that it's sort of surrounded by. But interestingly, when you take it out of the folkloric standpoint, you talk to people who've actually encountered them, what they look like is 3 misty figures that you can feel that they're feminine. You can feel that spiritual presence of powerful feminine force. That's either at the foot of the deathbed of the person who's dying, or following them. Like one time I saw them, this was a bit much, I think I was maybe 12 years old, and I was out at a restaurant with my mama, and I'm sitting there trying to eat, and then all of a sudden I just got kind of quiet and upset, and my mom was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "They're over there." I said, "The mothers, they're behind that man." And as a little boy, I said, "Well, should I go over and tell them that their loved ones get ready to pass?" And my mother, she was wonderful. She said, "Baby, you can't always say what you see."
Mhm.
You can't always say what you see. So that's just an example of. Now, I've talked to midwives and emergency room workers who also have spoken to me about 3 misty figures that they've seen at birthings, right? And so there's the 3 fairy godmothers, and that's a version of these washerwomen too, except with that, they're affixing the soul to form. Whereas
so they work both ways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. The other version of them has them removing or disconnecting, the soul from form.
And now,
so there's just
here's just a question for you that came out of the chat room. So what you're saying is these are transparent. They don't look like physical people. They look transparent. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say that, except the thing about these spirits is they can become as solid as they wish. They can become very solid. They can look human. And the reports in folklore, of course, was, having them looking very, very solid. Now, we all know that folklore sometimes adds a little extra, entertainment factor to the stories. But they can become pretty solid. I think the most solid I've ever seen them is they looked like human ghosts, but you knew they weren't because there was a level of power that they had. You felt that they were old. You can feel their age. Yeah.
Is there a difference in what you interpret with the birth? Is it a younger, more gossamer type? And as they progress to leave? Is that a more solid, more direct?
Well, I think that's a good question. Actually, I think it's a enthralling question. I don't know that I've ever heard that, because some people said, that many people said in birthing rooms what they felt and what they saw felt old and wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've got my own theories about how spirits come. I don't think spirits come often as they are. They come in the way we can best see them, and they reach into the drag closet of our mind, and they find something, except for ancestral spirits, which of course had a familiar human form,
Now,
but
talking in your book, you talk a lot about the old ways, the ancient ways. And just the other night, I was watching an old rerun of the X-Files, which I hear they're bringing back. Yay! So
yes, they are.
Yes, they are. And Fox, Mulder, Scully, they're going to reprise their role. So we're all excited. Those X-Files. But in this one, it was fascinating because it was a woman who had given birth to twin boys, and her mother, they were Romanian, and the mother said, one was stillborn, and she said, you've got to do the separation ceremony to make sure that your living boy is not followed by death. And she didn't believe in the old ways. And she said, no, it's ridiculous, I'm not going to do that. So these strange things start happening, and the living boy is now 8 or 9 years old. They keep saying it's not me who's doing it, it's my twin brother, who she had never told him about. But towards the end, they call in the old Romanian men who conduct the separation ceremony. And it was truly a powerful, powerful scene because, here's the old magic, here's the old understanding of the ways. And they were able to separate him from his dead twin, and so everything returned to normal. But it's like so much of that is either hidden or lost, or again, we just kind of don't believe in it or whatever. But it was probably one of the most powerful segments I've ever seen on television. It really struck a chord. And then, of course, reading your book where you talk about the old ways, it just seemed to bring all of this to the forefront, how important those old ways are.
Well, I have a saying, you cannot bless the fruits and curse the roots. And no matter how quick-moving our wonderful technologies grow, and I love them too. God knows I love my air conditioner, I love my heater, I love my car, I love all these incredible, wonderful things that have come out of that. But, one, we mustn't ever forget that the core of life, though our lifestyle has changed, life has not. Life continues its cycles. Life continues, and our elders taught us, all of the indigenous traditions of the world taught us that the world is populated. It is populated by unseen forces that affect such things as luck and love and weather and, just a host of things, and that we not only have to placate those, we have to be good neighbors, which, by the way, is one of the old names of the fairies. They call them the good neighbors. We have to learn to be good neighbors. Now, where we're at now, and I have to tell you my concern for our species, is that we've grown top-heavy. We are expanding our technologies out in greater and greater reaches, and we're broadening the scope of what we see and what we know, but we're not deepening it. Mm-hmm. And the way to deepen it is to go back to the wisdom traditions of the old ways and ask, what did they say about life and how life works? What do we need to take with us, right, about relating to the deeper parts of life? And I think that's where some of these traditions start to come in. I fear that if we don't, we're going to run into some serious problems not far down the road. I always say, humans, we're pretty cool. We're a neat species. I mean, after all, I better like them. I'm one of them. But we're probably one of the few species that pees in the water upstream and then says, wonder why the water tastes funny downstream.
Yes, it
does.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, and this is a very concerning time because, as you mentioned, our technology has outstripped our connection to the earth and ourselves and our spiritual nature. So it is a dangerous time where I think we all kind of stand in the crossroads. And this is why I think, Orion, your work is so important, because you have the ability to help us all make that connection through your books. And you have classes, you do lectures. I mean, how can people find you also on the Internet, Orion? What's your website?
Well, I bow my head in shame because right now my website's not terribly effective right now because I have to catch it up. So at the moment, OrionFoxwood.com is not entirely the best way to keep up on me, but it is a good way to communicate with me.
All right, that's a good start.
And then I'm on Facebook. And
good.
I love Facebook.
I do too.
Right.
I love it. I get to reach more people. I get to share things. So that's one. That's another way. I'm staying pretty busy these days, because I'm teaching in a lot of places, and then of course the book tour is keeping me real busy. So there's these new dimensions, to my work.
Well, that's great. This work is very important. I want to, again, encourage everybody to go out and get your new book. The name of it is The Flame in the Cauldron. It's available on Amazon, bookstores, etc. It is a great book. I mean, your writing is simple but deep and profound, and it immediately, just by reading it, people will get that deeper connection. And, of course, the work that you suggest, got a lot of visualizations here, meditations. They're all wonderful. And this is not fluff, everybody. This is the real deal. So if you want the real deal, this is the book for you, The Flame in the Cauldron. So you talk about also the fact that you're with magic, with witchery, you're not changing nature. You're not contorting it or doing anything weird to it. You're working with it. Can you tell us more about this concept?
Well, there's a bunch of little thoughts that are sort of, I guess, philosophical thoughts that are sort of connected all up in there. The first thing to understand is, to our elders, nature wasn't an event. Nature wasn't a series of different processes that occur. Nature was a person. Nature was a person, a big person with many persons related to it. So the things that cause things to grow and to wither and all that are animated and alive and conscious and sentient. So a lot of what it means to be a witch is to not humanize the world, but instead to actually speak to nature on nature's terms. My elders, one of my elders, my queen, in fact, in the craft, who I love so much, she always said, the witch reveres the gods who made man. And she said that as long as the face of humanity is on the face of the gods, we haven't reached the witch gods. Now, another one of my elders said this really profound thing to me. One day I was maybe 17. I was young. I had hair. It was that long ago. And a follicle far away. And her name was Carrie. And I said, Carrie, God, with the Inquisition, with the horrors of all that. And I said, did the old craft, did we destroy it? Is the craft gone? And she laughed at me, and I kind of felt like she was making fun of me. And she said, how can you destroy that which was never created? And so witchcraft, nature-based witchcraft, the kind of witchcraft I know, because that word could be applied to lots of different practices, is about knowing the subtle and visible side of nature, not as a thing, but as a person, and a person that can be engaged with, worked with directly. And that's why when she said, how could we, was it, you cannot destroy that which was never created, she was making it clear that true witchcraft, in the oldest sense, does not come from a book, doesn't come from a medieval grimoire, it doesn't come from, anything of the world of man. It comes from nature. It comes from the first witch. And Earth was the first witch. Who else can take the stars, can take light, and make all of life out of it? Our scientists are all cute and good, and I love them too. But they can't do that. They can't do that. They haven't matched that spell yet.
That's right.
I don't know if that answered it. Sometimes I feel like I get on these preachy things, so I don't know if I answered the question.
You did, and keep going.
Very
please.
interesting.
Yeah, and then you brings us to me to another question that you actually raise in your book, where you say, "Is everyone of the witch blood?" So are we?
And really, I think a hard question to answer. So at best, what we can do is we can say what we think, right?
Right.
So it might be good for me to say a little something so that the readers have a feel for what is this? What are they talking about when they talk about witch blood? Nearly every indigenous tradition that I know, any of the old wisdom traditions, teach that the propensity to be drawn to work with the spirit world and to have the gifts of the spirit world, be that magic, the second sight, all the different ways we talk about it, is actually a genetic one, and that it runs in families. In fact, I've checked this out with a number of medicine people that I know and native traditions as well, and they often say the medicine runs in the families, like it runs in certain families. Now, the stories about where the witch blood comes from, they abound. Some say, it came from when, the daughters of man mated with the sons of God, like the Grimoire, the Watchers. Others, and so that's a more Christian interpretation. Others say it's when humanity, at an early wave of its life, some families were in strong relationship and even mated with the fairy people. So it is definitely saying that at some point in an early wave, an early order of human life, when humanity was much, much closer in its conscious relationship with the spirit world, there was a type of mating, which you might say there was a way that certain attributes came into the DNA pool of humanity. The witch blood is that blood. And now, do I think it's in everybody? I've thought about it. Daggone, I haven't come up with a measuring tool yet, but stay tuned. I'm going to come up with a witchometer. And so,
will you call us first?
We want you to test it on us.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm sure y'all are natural, wonderful witches. Oh my God. So, I do think it might, at this point, be in just about everybody. What I think is that it pools like a pool of water, more in some families or in some person. And one of the curious things about the witch blood is that this propensity can skip generations. It can lie quiet until necessity, opportunity, and resource line up like the tumblers in a lock, and then it awakens, right? So I think that the reason we've got this large number of people interested in witchcraft right now, and you can see that the worldwide pagan movement, is because the earth needs more witches. The earth needs her silenced mouth unsilenced. She needs the witches, the old style witches that went to the in-between places, the graveyards, the deep valleys, the hidden, haunted places of nature, and they got the ear of their heart close to the mouth of the land and found out what rituals, what prayers we need to do to restore balances. So I think that we're in the middle of a type of blood eruption that the movement, the pagan movement, I think was heralding it, that the blood is pooling, and my spirit wife, Bree, and then many other of my ancestor spirits are also telling me that humanity's very much going to need people like us as translators and integrators, because the blood's going to wake up whether people are ready for it or not. Sort of the democracy suspended, because the whole planet is changing in consciousness, and I think we're going to see unprecedented levels of people with psychic gifts, with spiritual gifts, and the reason for that is I don't believe it's because humanity has reached some great exalted phase. I'm not saying we haven't reached the wonderful phase, but I think it's much more practical than that. I think it's because the earth has sent out a call from its the center of its own soul that has risen up through human blood, deep human awareness, or I should say ancestral awareness, and it's causing the blood to awaken. And we're going to need people to help people cope with that, translate it. Lord, that's why I love your show. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a ministry. It's a very important ministry because people are going to have these things happening where they're encountering the other world, and they may not have shamans and witches and, people who are learned in the invisible side of nature, who are learned in this capacity and how to have it be healthy and a contribution to one's life and to the world. So honestly, that's why I kind of tackled that subject. The witch blood is an old teaching, and this is again an older craft. But a lot of people have not wanted to talk about it so much, mostly because they were afraid, and I agree with this fear, that it might get abused. It might be looked at as some horrific thing like the whole Aryan race stuff. The witch blood is not about someone being better than another or any of that. It's just about a natural propensity for otherness and these sort of skills, these senses, to perceive the other strata of life. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, what I'm hearing and understanding, is that it's about people being able to have that type of simpatico. It's that relationship, not a power over, but a power with the forces of nature, the forces of the sky, the forces of the earth, and letting this move through us. So that's the power. It's not about bending things to our will or enforcing our ego on anybody or anything, but it's allowing these forces to move through us. And it does seem like there are some people who have, I don't know what they carry in their blood, but there's something that allows more of this to take place.
Well, I have so enjoyed, ever since I wrote that part of the chapter in my book, I've gotten email after email after email where people saying, "Oh my God, this finally makes sense," and this actually almost brings me to tears just talking about it, because people are like, "This makes sense," and I'm not crazy, and this is what my grandparents, my elders talked about, but no one talks about it anymore, and there seems to be few people left to help people navigate through the awakening of the witch blood. So I actually wrote that chapter, well, I guess to speak on it, but also with hopes that people who are having the awakening of the blood would not fight it and would see that this is something that's been talked about in old traditions for many, many years, and that they wouldn't, suffer with it, but instead allow it to awaken so that they can become the reason that nature gave us that blood in the first place, and that is that nature really left this way to make sure there was enough people who could hear the call of nature, who could hear the voice of these spirits in nature, and then tell us what rituals we need to do, what songs we need to sing to come into balance. The stakes have never been higher for that.
God, yeah. No, it's true. We need to honor our ancestral connection, and many people have lost it. So, this is a tremendous piece of work you've brought forward to all of us. And, again, there's so many interesting parts of this book. I mean, this tapping the essence. May I read that quote that you use at the beginning of the chapter there?
Oh, I'd
Thrice I knock. Okay, good. Thrice I knock at the door. All things are as they were before. By earth and water, wind and flame. Bring magic in the old one's name. Tell us about that. Tapping the essence.
Well, that is part of a teaching passed on to me by my elders in the craft. Now, when I talk about my elders, too, it's important to understand I have my conjure elders, which were more like family and aunts, and then later as I grew up, people that I met throughout the South who taught me more, because I kept growing. And then I have my craft elders, which I actually was initiated into in the 80s, and I speak, as you can see, very fondly of the many things that they gave me. And that was one of them. So that invocation, the Dark One, and what the Dark One, and sometimes people get afraid of those kind of words, right? The Dark One.
Yes, exactly.
And being afraid of the darkness, that means you have to be afraid of space from whence the stars are given birth. You have to be afraid of the womb, and that would mean you would have to be afraid of soil. And all of our plants that feed us grow from the soil. So the dark and the Dark One is that ancient quality of life, that deep abiding place where the roots of life grow out. Now, exactly what it is differs even among my teachers. So they would say, some would say, the old one is the goddess. It's Mother Fate, right? Others say, it's the crossroads spirit. It's the Lord of the threshold, the opener of the way to the spirit world. And then yet others, so you can see they differed, right, would say, it is the divine providence. It's like the Great Spirit. It's the source of the source that all things come. And now the charm itself is saying, thrice I knock at the Dark One's door. So it's saying thrice, I'm knocking thrice, which is about knocking at the gates of the three realms of existence. The underworld, which is the subtle inner tides, the middle world, which is sort of the embodied expressed realm, and the overworld, which is more stellar and expansive. So thrice I knock at the Dark One's door is to say, I call upon the attention of the Creator, of the source, of this power of life and what we might think of consciousness itself, and all three of those realms. Thrice I knock on the Dark One's door. All things are as they were before. We're going back to the primordial beginnings, the unconditioned state of life, that magical place where all things are possible, where things have not been bound into law but are alive in the heart of a living Creator, a living spiritual force. All things are as they were before, so going to that timeless state, and water, wind, and flame. I think that part makes sense. The four classifications of elements. Of course, we know those aren't true elements; those are states of being.
And I think you're bringing up something so important about going into the darkness because, like you said, so many people have negative associations, but it's not. I mean, you talk about the void. That's the power going into the void. You've got to go there. You've got to go there to get the power, right?
Mm-hmm. And the last I checked, the only way the stars are born is out of space. And in fact, I love what I always teach my students. is that breathing space, the breathing space, the space that gave birth to everything, the moving, breathing space in the universe. That's the Divine Mother. The Divine Father is the first star ever lit on the altar of heaven, the central sun of being, the first flame out of which all flames were lit, right? But it all still starts. Light comes out of darkness. Light was born out of darkness. How could we turn and fear the mother of everything? And to fear the dark.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh,
it really doesn't.
It really
but we managed to twist it around. Yes.
Well, I love witchcraft, and I actually love the word because and I've heard people say, "Oh, well, maybe you should refer to it as something else." And I've said, "Well, what do I call it?" And maybe you should refer to it as something less challenging for people to deal with. And what I say to that is I love the word witch. What it does is it takes us to an edgier place of life. It takes us, the moment you hear it, you think of magic. But you also think of, I better take this stuff seriously. You think of old. You think of what, and it's a challenging word, and I think that's why we need it. I think sometimes, and nature is challenging, and we need so bad to have the old witch back. The one who can listen to nature and tell us what she's saying and what we need to do and not hold back because it might hurt someone's feelings, or not hold back because it might affect the sales of major corporation, some stocks. We need the old witches to come back,
And come out in the open and do what you're doing, which is to inform us, to educate us, and also to help us to find our way, because this is a dark time in our culture. Yes, it is, in our world.
And
it's a very dark.
I don't think stakes have ever been higher. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've ever... I'm sorry, yes, ma'am?
No, that's okay. Exactly. Go ahead. I mean, we haven't faced so many possible worldwide traumas that can come from so many different sources. It's not just one thing. It's a lot of possibilities here, and none of them are good.
No, and I think that nature as a living collective, the way I describe it, I say, for some years she's, it's kind of like when we were kids and we'd go out playing, right? And we had big yards where I was from, big yards, acres would be a yard, And we would go next door, to play maybe with the neighbor kid. And we had a curfew. And, the curfew was, we had to be back at a certain time because, of course, we had school the next day. And you always knew that if you didn't, Mom would stick her head out on the porch and, baby, remember that curfew, right? Then if it amped up and if you didn't pay attention, God forbid, if you did not pay attention, then as it got close to that time and she could tell you weren't on your way up, that porch light would start to get turned off and on to signal. If, however, by then you had not responded, this voice of terror and power would come off. Yeah, you know that voice saying, "Don't make me get off this porch." Well, nature, nature, I think, has already been flipping the switch on and off and saying, hello, you've gone too far. Hey, chill out on this particular resource you're using or the impact of it. And we're not coming in to, we're not listening to our curfew. And I really, with every ounce of my being, believe that the reason the old craft has come back out into modern consciousness so strongly, although it did survive in families and different places, is because she's trying to keep from coming off the porch. She's trying to send us, enough people to get an awareness out there. and enough people who can speak to the dead and bring the ancestral awareness back to us too, and so that we can go to the roots and say, how should we be living? What do we need to do to not only save ourselves, but actually to be worthy of living on this continued life on this beautiful, giving, generous earth? Can you kind of tell there was strong feelings behind why I wrote this book?
Oh, yes.
Comes through loud and clear, Orion. And that's why, again, we love having you on the show, because your passion about this really comes through and it touches everybody's heart. This is such important information. And in your book, you actually teach people how to go inside. You have a lot of different exercises here to see, how do I wake myself up? How do I know if witchery is for me? So you give a lot of information there that's so important. Do you want to share any of that? I mean, you talk about the 4 ways of witchery and all of that. What would you like to share with our audience on that?
Well, the 4 ways, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I was hoping someone would bring that one up. The 4 ways of witchery. The reason is it was one of the things that I shared in the book that I thought might really add to the corpus of material. Whenever I write my books, I want to be true to my soul, true to what I know and have experienced, not just, what I've researched from another person's work. I want to contribute to what's out there so that I'm not just repeating it. And so when I wrote this book, a part of what I wanted to give was the soul of the witch, specifically the soul of the nature-based witch. And not to give a whole lot of formulas, although I gave some, but to give more of a glimpse into the deep mystical experience of the witch, and what and how it feels, how it operates. I'm sorry, I keep hitting this button. And so one of the things that I did is, over the years, I've worked with many elders in the craft, and I'm an elder in a traditional craft line. And as I've talked to different elders in different craft traditions, you would come up against where they differ. And, of course, being traditional crafters as we are, we can be a little rigid. So we often will say the reason we differ is they have it the wrong way and I have it the right way. But as I was talking to witches, I was noticing something. I don't know all the elements that determine this, but that different traditions, because it could be historic events, it could be cultures, it could be how it migrated, it could be at what period of time did this witchcraft grow up in, but that different witchcraft traditions had different focuses on different things. Now, here's an example. Some traditions focus on fertility, right? Ensuring that the crops grow, ensure that humanity can continue to have children, ensuring that the animals are fruitful, that they have babies and all of that. So the fertility traditions are really, that mode of witchery is actually about the vitality of life. The word fertility gets used, I think it's overused, because I think, and the reason too is because then when I talk to, for instance, gay people who may not be, having children, they're going, well, how do I relate to this? Why is that, an important component to my spirituality, since it's another part of sort of my everyday experience.
Right.
And the truth is that fertility piece is not just about having babies. It's about the vitality of life. And the witch, from that mode, does ceremonies and work to support, first and foremost, the vitality of life. Secondly, the vitality of humanity. And the reason being is because if we support the vitality of the larger circle of life, it will take care of humanity. We will be fine. If, however, our vitality work is only focused on doing what makes humanity's life more comfortable, then, in fact, we're causing destruction, because we don't live as a species separate from the rest of this planet. So this is where you start to see, for instance, decisions that are not considerate of the greater holism of nature.
Right.
And then later has a side effect for humanity. So that's one of them. So there's the mystical one. So some traditions are more mystery-oriented. Fertility. Then there's the ones that are more mystery-oriented, and that is that through certain rituals and ceremonies at certain times, certain states of awareness make themselves known. Maybe they, through a certain ceremony, a certain ritual, they understand a certain mystery of nature or a certain mystery about life and how life works. Then there's fertility. Then there's the sorcery tradition or the sorcery mode. And what's funny is when you see people who are strongly fertility-oriented in their witchcraft, they're like, those who do sorcery are doing low-based stuff, not spiritual at all. But that's because the mode of their witchery differs, or the priority of their witchery differs for, whatever reasons that the tradition shaped in that way. So the sorcery ones are just about pure magic. So and then this last one, which is, and this wording came out of a discussion with a dear friend from the Victor Anderson and Corey Anderson fairy line of witchcraft. We were sitting around talking one day, and we were talking about Wicca. Now, Wicca, by and large, is a lineated, initiatory, mystery and fertility practice, right? So this person was saying, well, really, I have no interest in Wicca whatsoever. And I said, oh, okay. He said, because I'm just not really interested in fertility practices. He said, my tradition is an ecstasy tradition. I said, oh, really? Say more. Well, inquiring minds.
Do tell.
And what he was getting at was his tradition was about merging and mingling with otherworldly beings as a access point to knowledge.
Well, that's interesting.
Here we have then language around different ways that people or traditions might be practicing witchcraft with a different focus, a different priority. So you get the mystery, the sorcery, the ecstasy, and fertility. So that's why I wrote those, to just give, I guess, a paradigm, some extra language to talk about why traditions may differ. And
and how some people may be called to one over another, to be more comfortable with that particular paradigm, and that's okay. One is not necessarily superior to the other.
And see, those are the kinds of things that I actually find enthralling, what you just said, and that is some people are drawn to. Like, one day, in my copious time, I want to write more about what my thoughts are, what my elders' thoughts were about why different people are drawn to different practices more than others. Is it, for instance, past life? Is it genetic? Meaning, is this the way their witch blood works in their genetic pool? Is it that they're being called to that because that's where their gifts lie, as in affecting that particular type of magic? See, I think there's a lot of mysteries in witchcraft that we haven't talked about enough. Again, the witch blood one, when I wrote that, I really felt like I was talking about the coming out process of a witch.
Yes. That's what it sounds like. I mean, it's exactly that.
Doesn't it? And anyone who is, LGBT, anyone who's gone through a coming out process will tell you the first time that they heard the language to the stages of coming out, how healing it was. They were like, oh, my God, it wasn't crazy. Oh, my God, it was just my identity synthesis. It was me, becoming like a caterpillar, becoming a butterfly. And I think that we've needed more language since the witchcraft movement is big, and since for whatever reason the Earth Mother has decided she needs more witches, and so she's calling witches to come forward. But I think parallel with that is we need to be able to talk about the mystical experience of a witch. What does it feel like? How does it operate? And we're talking about the mystical experience of a type of magic worker that has probably been around since the very beginnings of human time. There has always been that person, in the community, in families, chosen by the spirits for whatever reason, going through uncanny and often daunting and scary awakenings, who then later is feared and revered because they do speak so directly to the other world and they affect the other world. People ask me who are not witches, who are not cool like us, right? Orion, at the core of it all, why do you think there is so much fear around witches? I said, I think it is our modern disconnection from looking at nature directly in its face, looking at its fierceness, its unpredictability, its wild spirit, and in some ways the spirit of the witch echoes that.
Yes, that's
sometimes
profound.
It's good to be disturbed. I've been rattling away. See, I've been like wind up witch doll here.
But it's fabulous for the rest
Thank
of us
you.
that know so little about what you have to offer us. And I think this is just fabulous. You think back, you speak of witches when we were youngsters. We think of Hansel and Gretel and push in the oven. And you don't think of the other aspects that go along with this.
Yeah, that are so powerful and natural.
And when you think of a witch, you also think of, certainly someone who seems to have these uncanny abilities to affect change, blessings, cursings, healings, whatever. But to me, even more mystical is the ability to affect fate. And see, in the craft I came out of, the best way I can put it is, for some, fate is their master. For the traditionalist witch, fate is their mother. And yes, the witch affects fate.
The witch does.
Oh, yes. In fact, the witch prays to fate. The witch engages fate in this sacred, direct, and powerful way. That's why witches are here, is to shift fate. I'm talking about on the more magical end. To shift fate, to engage with fate, and I think that, that's a little intimidating.
That's a lot of power, and I think about it too in terms of your descriptions of pulling the energy from the earth up, pulling the energy from the sky down, meeting in the heart, and then going out from there. I mean, I see it almost like I see something on a movie screen. It's a powerful laser that goes in those directions and then can affect fate and many other things too. And as you mentioned, we all have an ability. It's how much of one and how much time we want to spend developing it. And again, that's why I love your book, The Flame in the Cauldron by Orion Foxwood. You guys got to run out and get this book. I am not kidding. It is one of the best books I've read in a year. And I read a lot of books.
Honored. Thank you.
Seriously, it holds your attention throughout. You don't want to put it down until you're finished with it.
Yeah,
and I very rarely walk around with a book in my hand, but I did until I finished it.
No kidding. But the power of it is there. There's so much fluff out there. This is real, and it's deep, and it brings you into a whole level of awareness that we have missed for a long, long time. And you're right. We got to get back to it. We got to get back to it now. And that's why your book is so important. Now, I've got a ton of questions. We've got to shift gears for a second, Orion. People want to know about the fairy. So I've got a whole bunch of questions here. How do you talk to the fairy? People love the fairy in the fairy realm. Now, we also have heard there's good and bad in the fairy realm, just like there are with humans. But how do you approach the fairy realm? Obviously respectfully, but how do you do it?
Well, the first thing to understand is when you think about what the fairy people are, and they've had many names in many cultures, what these beings are, and you first understand you're talking about the invisible sentient side of nature, and one of the ways they were talked about in old folk tradition is our companions, cousins, and co-walkers. So these are our sort of cousins, in the other word. They're closest next to kin, second only to the human ancestors. Now, we really demonized them in our traditions, calling them devils and all kinds of things. That didn't work so well in terms of taking away the power of the fairy tradition. But then the next thing that came along was something called trivializing, and trivialized them as cute and, just sort of these adorable beings. Well, nature is not adorable. Nature is powerful. It is awesome. It is not something to be feared, but it is something to respect and be in awe of. So can they be dangerous? Well, what I would say is nature dangerous?
Can be.
It can be, and that these beings, they're not mean-spirited beings by no means. But what they do, good English there, is they protect the forces of nature. They protect the functions of nature. And given some of our relationship as a greater species ecologically and some of the damage we've done to nature, is there any doubt in why they would shun from us, or they might even be protective and sort of restrict our access to their realms? So I always say the best way to first come in is through the door of grace. Right? Come in.
So how does someone do that?
Well, walk in knowing that all of your ancestors, and I'm talking old ancestors, we're talking way back, right? Like our pagan ancestors, and even before we use such words, right? They knew of the fairy people, right? In fact, I know this is an aside, and I always tell these different stories. When I was growing up as a little boy, there was this old guy from the Blue Ridge Mountains, and narrow tooth in his mouth, and he told me, they call me Mike back there because my middle name's Michael, and this man told me something that later stuck with me my whole life about the fairy people. He called them folk. He said to me, Mike, you got to make right with them folk because they can snatch your prayer before they reach the ears of God.
Ooh.
And then he goes on to say, the earth belongs to them. They were the first here. They are the ancestors of all of life on earth. And this earth belongs to them. Isn't that beautiful?
Wow.
And it belongs to them. And it belongs to them because they are responsible for the natural order and keeping the natural order, healthy. So going into a relationship with them, you want to keep in mind that we're going into an area where humanity has pushed them away, demonizing and trivializing, and just through inconsiderate actions, that we've done in pollution and all that. And their beloved nature, which they feed vitality to, is suffering because of it. So if we go in that way, we're walking in knowing that in some ways we represent the species that we're from. We may not get immediate trust. So to go in making offerings, to go in to that relationship before we want to get anything from them, to go in first doing work, cleaning up riverbeds or cleaning up polluted places. They see this. They see these acts of grace in humanity when we do them, and that will get you further along the way of seeing a nature spirit, believe it or not, than very, complex invocations and things like that. So, one, got to build trust. Two, there are traditional times for seeing them, and these times are often referred to as betwixt and between, liminal, the breathing times, the thinning times, and these are times like dusk and dawn is a good time to see them. Often people also report their seeing these beings as not seeing them direct. They see them out the side of their eyesight. So we don't look at them often directly because, not because there's any caveat against it, but because we don't seem to perceive them as well when we look direct. I love what one of my friends, Michael Dunning, he's a Scottish seer, he's an amazing man, says, we must cultivate the eye that receives and embraces instead of the eye that grabs and eats. So to see them, we're going to have to shift how we see, to be able to see through the heart, walk in with the assumption that since there's thousands of years of traditions about them, that they're probably real, so we can get past that point.
Right.
So don't walk in with expecting them to be real. When I wrote my first book, The Fairy Teachings, which actually you can get at rjstewart.net, I put a lot of folklore in there about offerings to make to them, about oils that one can make. In fact, I have a person who makes the oil that I put in there, the fairy site oil, Susan Diamond, and sells it at Serpent's Kiss in Santa Cruz. You can get that online. That helps with developing the fairy site. But know this, if you're going to want to see them and you're going to want to relate to them, you're going to have to change your relationship with nature.
For the better.
For the better. Absolutely.
So that's all good. But this is all about respect and a relationship. You don't go blustering into the woods and demand that they show themselves or they help you or they do, again, bend to your will. It's not about that.
Oh, if you think you can make a fairy being do something, honey, you're in for the journey of your life.
Right.
And in some traditions of old witchcraft, in the tradition I come out of, the fairy people are the source of all magic. They are the ones who taught humanity the natural magics. They're the ones who gave us the circle. They're the ones who told us how to use fire because it has direct communion with the stars. They were the ones who told us that it's the power of water that transmits the messages of the soul. They were the ones who told us that we needed to keep certain ceremonial times alive, like the witch's wheel of the year, like a Candlemas and Beltane and Hallows and Lammas, and these times, because they're telling us that they told us that there are breathing times when the inflowing and outflowing tide of life speak and express. And at those times, we must go and we must make offerings and we must do ceremonies to help uphold the wheel of the year. And in doing so, the fair ones will come forward when we're doing, and they will teach us. They're seen as really the sources of all magical knowledge in old craft.
Yeah, well, this is a powerful group that you approach with respect and that you listen to what they have to say. So it's such an important relationship to rekindle, but again, it has to be done respectfully. And again, so many people, I think, have misconceptions about witchcraft, that it's about making people do things that they wouldn't normally do. It's about using your will to make things happen, and it's not really that. It's so much deeper and so much more profound in its connection to all that is. So this is again what you teach people.
Well, there's another quote. I can't believe I found two really good quotes out of that True Blood, and you can find wisdom in the strangest places. And this one of the people, I can't remember which character, but this character in the show says, "Don't blame the magic for how it's used." And so, witchcraft, like any other path of power, is amoral, meaning by itself. That's like saying electricity is evil because it shocks people.
Exactly.
Right? It's not. It's just electricity. The power of witchcraft is there whether you believe in it or not. That's inconsequential. It's just there. It's working directly with the power of the spirits and the and nature itself. It's how it's used. Now, are there bad witches, meaning that work the power in an unwholesome way, in an unethical way? Well, yes. But are there people in other traditions, where prayer is used a lot, who pray for bad things to happen to people? And the answer is yes, sadly.
There is, isn't there?
Yet we wouldn't say, therefore, prayer is evil.
That's right. That's a good point.
Certainly gives you a different way of looking at things.
Thank you.
Yes, it does. It does. Oh, my goodness. Well, now, here's a question, also from the chat room. Somebody wants to know if Fairy has ever communicated or tried to communicate through a phone line. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Oh, yeah. What? And that's a really, caller, what a great question. What we got to remember is that everything in our world, everything, is made out of nature. Like one of my areas where I like to tease us as humans is when we go, well, I got to take off work and get back to nature. And my answer is, well, where the hell did you go? Where did you go? Now, I know what they really mean. What they mean is I have to disconnect from the busyness and the outward-focused busy centrifuge of human everyday life and touch something older, something maybe still, or I don't know if that's quite what it's something that's our roots, and that those roots somehow they doctor us, they bring us a feeling of well-being, like when we go to the mountains or we go to the shoreline or we go. Now, so having said all that, there is nowhere we can go where nature is not. Even man-made things were all made taking things from nature and making them.
Right.
So that means that a being that is literally the pure vitality of nature, which is what these fairy beings are. They are literally nature's vitality, and they live in the state of natural nature vitality. These beings can work through everything in the form world, everything. They can use it to communicate. They can speak through TV sets, radios, because also they're a part of an energetic line, so they can affect energy streams. So absolutely. The most common way that people feel them as they're approaching this world is like they'll get shivers in their tummy, they'll get hot flashes and things like that. So they'll know they're in the presence of, as they'd say, an otherworldly being. But what I would say is it's not that it's otherworldly. You're in the presence of a being that is talking to you at the level of life force. And that's why you get those reactions. So, oh, yes, they can speak through every and anything. There is nothing that is, limited to them.
Gosh,
and
that's
remember
exciting.
this, too, when you talk about fairy, there's the larger fairy beings, deific, and then there's smaller ones that are cells in the body of the bigger ones. Thanks for asking that question, because it really is the traditional role of the witch to know some of those answers.
Well, this came from Rebecca in the chat room. She came up with that great question. And there's many more questions. You're just going to have to come back, Orion. I think we've merely scratched the surface here. But again, it's been just a tremendous conversation. She noticed I didn't even take a commercial break because I just didn't. For one reason, I was afraid I couldn't because we have a new board here. Yeah, we have a new board. I thought I'll never get back on the air, and that would be a shame. So, but I just said, forget it. We can bypass the commercials. But yeah, you've been so fascinating to listen to. I hated to break away to commercials. There's just such a flow of energy happening between you and our audience and Patricia and I. I didn't want to break it. It's just been so healing to have you on our show tonight of all nights. And we would love to have you back any time that you can fit us into your busy schedule. So
I feel very honored to be on here. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting my work, and I'm hopeful that this the new book will reach many of the eyes and ears of those who need it, and we need to re-enchant the world.
That's beautiful. We do, and you've got to get you out here to Marin and Adair's place, Azure Green. It's right up the street from us, and have you do a workshop up here.
Oh, I would love that. And then we could also have hangout time, and I love that.
That would be great to have you here in person. And again, for everybody listening tonight, The Flame in the Cauldron is the book to get. It is a book of old-style witchery by Orion Foxwood. You can find Orion on Facebook and also at orionfoxwood.com. Is that right, Orion?
Yes.
It's at orionfoxwood.com. Okay. So, again, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And be sure to join us next week. We're going to have more exciting guests if that's possible. There's nobody more exciting than you, Orion. So, anyway. And thank you for your kind words regarding our loss of our sister in light, Helene. And again, condolences.
You didn't lose her at all.
We didn't. She just got bigger.
You know right where she went.
Exactly.
We do. Yeah. And we will be reaching out to her again. So, again, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight in this incredible show. And we'll see you all on the Blue Highway.
Thank you. And many blessings.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with